What's going on, guys? This is Johnny Rocket Fingers here, back with another video. And today I figured I'd change things up and do a little air realistic battles. And today we are aboard the infamous Mark 24 Griffin Spitfire. Now, I still stand by my opinion that this aircraft is the best piston engine aircraft in the game. Now, there are many arguments to say that the P-51H could be better, and I would agree. On paper, the P-51H is comparable, if not surpasses, the Mark 24 in different ways. But in practice, the Mark 24 is still the same rock-solid monster it's been for the past, 3 years it's been in the game. So anyway, let's go ahead into the history of the aircraft. This is taken straight off of Wikipedia. The Mark 24 was the final Spitfire variant and was similar to the Mark 22, except that it had an increased fuel capacity over its predecessors. 2 fuel tanks of 150 liters each were installed in the rear fuselage. There were also 0-point fittings for rocket projectiles under the wings. And those are the RP3s, and those are actually represented in game. And it had the large spiteful tail, and what they mean by that is this very large tail that sticks over the canopy. You usually see this on most post-war super props. Modifications were also made to the trim tab gearings to perfect the Mark 24's handling. The Mark 24 achieved a maximum speed of 454 miles per hour and could reach an altitude of 30,000 feet in 8 minutes. Putting it on par with the most advanced piston engine fighters of the era. Although designed as a fighter interceptor aircraft, the Spitfire proved its versatility in other roles as a fighter. The Mark 24 armament consists of 4 short-barreled Mark V 20mm Hispano cannons. The operational experience had proved that the hitting power of these larger weapons was necessary to overcome the thicker armor encountered on enemy aircraft as the war progressed. The aircraft was also used as a fighter-bomber, carrying 1 500-pound bomb and 2 250-pound or 110-kilogram bombs with rocket projectile launch rails fitted as standard. Late production aircraft were built with the lighter, short-barreled, electrically fired Mark V Hispano cannon. A total of 81 Mark 24s were completed, 27 of which were conversions from Mark 22s, and the last Mark 24 to be built was delivered in February 1948 and were used until 1952 by the 80 Squadron. Some of the squadron's aircraft went to Hong Kong Auxiliary Air Force, where they remained operational until 1955. So, that's pretty nice stuff. But how is this aircraft in-game? Well, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. There's really no other way to put it. This plane can do it all. It can turn, it can roll, it can climb, it can stall. It has really no drawbacks, other than, I would say, its top speed when compared to the rest of the super props of its battle rating, or near in its battle rating bracket. But that's about it. It never once are you ever going to feel that that's hindering you. So in game, this aircraft it's ridiculous. Its stats are just absolutely dumb. The wing loading, oh my god. Okay, so these stats are pretty ridiculous, and this is taken from the War Thunder Wiki. The wing loading, I'll pause it real quick, and then I'll go ahead and explain what's happening. The wing loading is 157 kilograms per square meters, or per square meter, which is retarded. That's absurd for a prop aircraft. And my uncle is a pilot for American Airlines, and when I read him these stats and told him it was a piston engine aircraft, he was mouth agape, just blown away. He couldn't believe that they were able to do this with a piston engine aircraft. So the max speed is 832 kilometers an hour at 8,200 meters. The max altitude is 11,800 meters. Your turn time, this is fully upgraded by the way, 17.7 seconds. And your rate of climb is an absolutely ridiculous 44.1 meters per second. I mean, oh my god. That's absurd. That'd be like taking, an early 109 or something, playing a game with it, getting in the replay, and just speeding it up times 3. And that's about Mark 24. It's so ridiculous. Also, it has 4 20mm Hispanos, which are very useful. They do a lot of damage, especially after the cannon buff. Their long-range ability to do those sick pilot snipes have been nerfed just a tad bit. Also, the landing flaps don't work as well as they used to. They used to be actually quite useful, say 220 miles an hour. You could pop those flaps out. They usually take the brunt of the air. Now they rip at about 175. So, and this is in miles per hour because I'm an Imperial pleb. 175 miles an hour. So they generally are not as useful as they used to be anymore. Maybe in a hammerhead. But anyway, so the prop is ridiculous, and the battle rating reflects that. This is a very warranted 6.7 battle rating for this aircraft, and it is the only prop that sits at this battle rating, I believe. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into what's happening in this game. So I am climbing here to my altitude. I believe my target altitude was about 22,000 feet, and I'm climbing in an area that the enemy team seems to have neglected. And Arado is diving after one of my Spitfires back here, and at first it kind of sketches me out a little bit, but he's got a great thrust to weight ratio, and I figured he might have enough energy to try to do it, but he's not dumb, and he's going to continue to extend out and go do his thing over there with the rest of my team. So anyway, I spot these black specks in the crowd, in the clouds, and I notice the shape of the aircraft looked like they were coming towards me, which is not a problem. Given the ridiculous acceleration of this aircraft, say if someone's even 5K out, I can level this aircraft out and get enough speed to begin to engage him. That's how absurd the power-to-weight ratio is on this thing. Anyway, as I observe closer, it doesn't look like they are coming towards me because they have not spotted me, and they are continuing to move to the clouds, going that way. Which is fantastic for me. They don't know I'm here, and I'm above them all. Beautiful, right? Time to have some fun. So I'm going to move in closer to figure out what they are, and it turns out to be 2 N1Ks. One is at lower altitude, and the other one is at higher altitude. And they both seem to be climbing, like most good prop players in an up tier against jets should do. The problem is given that I'm above them and behind them, this is going to bite them in the butt big time, because they just will not have the energy, nor will they be able to get the energy to deal with me. And so I go ahead and pick the lead aircraft because he is at higher altitude, just to toy with the guy behind him, and I'm sure this scared the crap out of him because I have so much energy, it's ridiculous compared to these guys. I slot him behind this guy, and I feel really bad because he did not notice me until I blew his wing off. So, wasn't good on him. Knock his wing off, or I believe his tail. Pull up. Other N1K is desperately trying to get shots on me, but he just does not have the energy to hold with me, and he is completely at my mercy. I swing all the way back around, slot in behind him, and finish this guy off. And so this should be a testament how ridiculous this aircraft's performance is, and also how it helps. By the way, turning like that is not a good idea. He should have dived, but oh well. How incredible, how these incredible stats of the aircraft, particularly its climb rate, can really help you out in these matches. I was above these guys, and I wasn't really taking my climb serious. I do have manual engine controls, but I wasn't using them this match. I just kind of pointed the nose up at 20 degrees, pressed WEP on, and went and made coffee. I'm that confident in this aircraft. I would not say the same about a P-51H. And now, to draw the comparisons between the two aircraft, I can put it plainly like this. I have had no problem staying on the tail of a P-51H on Hokkaido, and vice versa, it's been nearly impossible to shake a Mark 24 off my tail when I'm in a P-51H. That's just the bottom line. In practice, this aircraft is incredible. And of course, I have unlimited war emergency power. So as long as I got gas and my engine isn't dead, I can access all 2100 horsepower anytime I want. And that is a beautiful thing, particularly when fighting jets. So anyway, I'm just quickly scanning the clouds. I want to make sure no one else is popping through where I just killed those two N1Ks. I'm good. I'm going 232 miles an hour at 21,000 feet. I am in a fantastic energy state. So, you know, it's just simple, casual looking around, just seeing who can I engage. Because you never know, you end up with that one R2Y2 who just sideswipes you out of nowhere. It's happened many times. So, anyway, I spot these kind of a fur ball of jets going after our F-80 over there, and sadly he does not make it out of this engagement. But what he does do is give me, or create a diversion for me, because they have no idea I'm up here. They are all fixated on him, which is perfect. This aircraft also, fully upgraded, has a repair cost of just over 13,000 lions, so it's actually, with a talisman, this aircraft would be fantastic for grinding the rest of the British tree and for just general money making. I make a lot of money in this aircraft, and I don't consider myself a fantastic pilot. I'm not a hardcore ARB player. This aircraft is so good and fits the meta and does everything I want it to do so well that I'm able to generally get a good game almost every time I take it out. And don't even get me started on what this thing is like in a down tier. Good God. So anyway, I'm just trying to manage my dive properly. I don't want to lock up too much. As for mentioned, it doesn't have the fastest dive speed. It is fast, but it's not going to hold that dive as good as, say, a P-51H. No problem. I picked the Horton because he actually is the most dangerous aircraft to me as a prop. Even though he's a jet, the more his energy bleeds, the more he turns. And in fact, he can outturn me the slower he goes. So I go into a little bit of a rolling scissors with this guy, and I'm scared this whole time because his energy is bleeding, but not enough to turn within me. And for some odd reason, he straightens out. I'm like, okay, and slot right in behind him and put those Hispanos to work. Taking a few pop shots. Now, you do have 650 rounds, which seems like a lot, but these guns do fire fast, and so you do have to conserve ammo, not as much. So I pop this guy's engine out, hear a kick in my headset, and pull up instinctively, and it was perfect. I'm able to evade him, no problem, get out of his guns. He's doing the smart thing and extending so that he can reset the situation in his favor. But in his mind, he thinks I'm going to go back for this Horton, which will give him time to fully turn around and get his guns on me. What he doesn't know is I have blown this Horton's engine out, and he is dead. This allows me to turn towards the Kika in the middle of his turn and rapidly close the distance before he can get his guns on target. I get some good shots in, kill his engine, pull up, look behind, and let me get this shot. He's done. His engine is outie. So you can see what I mean. This thing has no problem dealing with jets as long as you're putting yourself in the higher energy state. If a jet's above you, you're going to be in a little different of a story. You can easily reverse them as long as you got energy. But you'd preferably want to climb and put yourself in those higher energy states because these aircraft just... I came out of nowhere. I had too much energy for them to deal with, and they fell apart very quickly. So anyway, I continue climbing, and I'm going near their base because I'm looking for the last guy alive, and I simply, just climb and look for him, but my fuel runs low, so I end up RTB. But I'm going to go back on to, let's see, let me go, sorry, my phone isn't the greatest, isn't the speediest smartphone on earth, but we'll head on back to Wikipedia, and we will go to the Mark 24. Now, this is quite the long page, because there's a lot of Griffin variants over the years, and we shall go straight down to the bottom. Okay, here we go. Right. Introduced into service in 1946, the F Mark 24 differed greatly from the original Spitfire Mark 1. No duh. Was twice as heavy, more than twice as powerful, and showed an increase of climb rate of 80% over the prototype K50-54. These remarkable increases in performance arose chiefly from the introduction of the Rolls-Royce Griffin engine in place of the famous Merlin engine of earlier variants. Rated at 2,050 horsepower, the 12-cylinder V liquid-cooled Griffin 61 engine featured a 2-stage supercharger, giving the Spitfire exceptional performance at high altitude that had been sometimes lacking in early marks. So that's the end of the Wikipedia description. A little history is always cool on the aircraft. I find this stuff fascinating. But yeah, the synopsis of this thing is just, it's amazing. So I'm going to speed this up. I climb, realize I'm nearly out of gas. Oh, and speaking of gas, you have to take 30 minutes with this aircraft regardless. I don't care about the map. You have to take 30 minutes with this aircraft because it guzzles gas. You're nearly double time on your fuel consumption when you're in war emergency power. So you can hear me, I've just cut the engine, and I'm just going to swing around and glide my way back to base. But yes, always take 30 minutes fuel or you will run out of gas. Unless you want, I mean, trust me, you will be a rocket ship on minimum fuel, but you'll be a rocket ship for 10 minutes. It cuts your fuel consumption time in half when you're on WEP. So this thing definitely guzzles gas. So 30 minutes is usually the recommended load I take. Also, I would set my gun conversions to... It depends on how you like to aim. 500 to 600. 600 used to be the optimal... convergence because the Hispanos could reach out so far, but 500 actually seems to be working a little better now because you are having to bring your engagements in closer because of that nerf. Anyway, synopsis of what's going on. So, a B-29 was up here, and a 262 came and killed him. Now, this is very important because you always want to think ahead in ARB matches. You always want to observe what's happening and plan out your attack based on what's happening because it can greatly benefit you in the future. Now, as mentioned, I am not some hardcore RB player. I don't even consider myself a good pilot. I'm a pretty trash pilot. But I definitely knew that when that 262 went after that B-29, who's the 262, by the way, is the last guy alive, he probably took some damage. Most definitely. And odds are he's going to have to go back to base, either out of ammo, out of fuel, or most likely damaged. And I did see him dive, which means he's going back to base. So my goal here is to rush up to altitude. Imagine if it actually climbed this fast. That'd be hilarious. This is like modern jet climb. But anyway, I climb myself back up to altitude, and I'm just trying to muscle out as much altitude as I possibly can in search of this guy. And I'm quite confident that he has returned back to base, which means he will not be able to gain back the altitude as much as I can. So for those who don't play props at this tier, or are not at this tier yet, just know that most of these early jets tend to struggle with climb rate and low speed acceleration. Climb rate is usually determined on the engine's power pulling it up to altitude, not necessarily by momentum. That would be pretty much a zoom climb. Anyway, because I'm so powerful and I have such a good power to weight ratio, I'm able to easily outclimb this 262, and this will put the engagement into my favor. Thankfully, one of my allies who stayed in the game to watch had activated a blind hunt order, which exposed the 262 to me, because I actually was having quite trouble spotting him, even though I knew he had gone back to his base. So, eventually, I do spot him. You can hear that little ringing noise of the order being activated, and I see him turn in, and I notice this is one thing you don't want to do in an early jet. Maybe in a later jet. I'm not at that tier, so I wouldn't take my advice on top tier, but I can tell you this much. In an early jet, the last thing you want to do is come right off the airfield and pitch it into a 20 or 25 degree climb. It is not going to benefit you when fighting props of this caliber, because it puts you in an extremely vulnerable situation to where if in the event he's engaged, which I'm about to do right now to him, he has a very long window of time, or a very short window of time to gain energy and speed, which it takes him a while to do. He'd have to pitch the nose down and bring that sucker into a dive because he just cannot accelerate enough to get the speed to engage with me properly. So right now I look at him climbing and you could see how slow he's moving. I'm able to easily gain him. He is just a sitting duck. I am in much farther energy state than he is. So anyway, he sees me, and he knows that he had made a mistake and begins to turn. He's doing some decent maneuvers. I roll back underneath him and I take him into a spiral climb and see if he'll take the bait, and he does. Don't ever do that. He should have dived away, but instead he begins to follow. You can hear those 30 mils cracking behind my tail. That was a little sketchy, but like clockwork, when you have the higher energy state, he begins to stall. And at this point, I think he knows that there's not much else he can do. He begins to continue turning. He had many chances to pull it into a dive and run away, but instead he begins to continue turning. He realizes that that was probably not a good idea and begins to pitch the nose down right about now, but it's already too late. I've slotted in behind him, and I'm able to continue to gain on him for quite a while and knock his tail off. Now this is pretty funny. Watch how close his guns come to shooting me. If this had happened and if he had actually blown me up like this, I would have laughed so hard. Oh man. But watch this. Oh, that'll get your butt clenching. So anyway, that was the end of the match, and I ended up with 5 kills. I earned about 120,000 silver lions. I do have premium, but just a great match, great carry, and it should be a testament to how great this aircraft is, still is, and will always be. You know, the Mark 24 Spitfire is just fantastic, and its battle rating is very warranted. And as you can see, in an up tier against jets, it has no problems dealing with them. And don't even get me started in a down tier. It is terrifying. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want this aircraft, go ahead and grind it. I recommend it 100% of the time. This aircraft is the most fun aircraft to fly in the game, hands down, in my opinion. It's a blast. It makes you feel like an ace, and I'm a terrible pilot. You know, I just know the basics, but this aircraft makes you feel like a good pilot, and it's just a blast to fly. It has very little weaknesses and so many strengths working for it. It's fantastic. Anyway, this has been Johnny Rocket Fingers. Go ahead, subscribe if you want. I would greatly appreciate it. Like the video, and I will catch you on the next one.